On my season finale episode, I welcome the legendary David Sheldon Hicks, founder of Territory Studios, one of the world's premier motion design and visual effects companies. His studio has brought visuals to some of the biggest blockbuster films on the planet. David is an inspiring speaker, mentor, and above all, a devoted family man. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my exclusive conversation with David Sheldon Hicks.
Conversations with Bryan Grant.
David Sheldon Hicks, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's great to see you. What an honor, man. Wow. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm good. I'm a little bit all over the place today because I lost my phone. I left my phone in the back of the car. I'm waiting for it to come back to me. So I'm sorry. If somebody tries to interrupt me on this, I'm going to tell them off, I promise.
No,
but
I'm
desperate.
Good.
I've got phone anxiety at the moment.
I can't imagine. That's got to be wild. But I'm sure and confident that it will come to you. You've got 17
it's the sort of thing that my family forces on me on holiday, you know. So this is practice.
Of course, you have 17 assistants, 3 security guards. I promise it will come to you soon. So you were born 1979 in London.
Mm-hmm.
I was also born that year, so we can talk a lot about 80s movies.
Yeah.
Tell me about growing up in your family.
Okay. I mean, you want to go really early days, do you? Should we go?
Oh, sure. Yeah, like growing up. Yeah, of course.
So I remember just loved drawing, was always drawing. And there was, my parents worked in an office or something. And do you remember old dot matrix paper? Dot matrix printers?
Of course.
And they were kind of concertinaed. They'd all kind of like stick together. So what I loved, and I think I was probably this was preschool, 3 or 4, I'd unwrap that dot matrix print, like really long lines, and I'd draw the biggest spaceships I could possibly imagine. Like that's like early memories. And I remember being influenced obviously by Star Wars and, you know, all the kind of the sci-fi movies of that era. And just the scale of things was always like super interesting to me. And the design and the drawing of technology. I remember having, I don't know what they were like illustrated NASA books of what living in space could be like in, you know, it probably was predicting 50 years time or something, you know, whatever it was. There were just these incredible illustrations. And I just remember being fascinated by that. Well, what we call world building now, but to me, it was just kind of like imagining what if. I was always fascinated by that. And then you had movies and TV shows, so like The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and, you know, kind of Jim Henson and all that kind of stuff where you're bringing characters alive. I'm like, really fascinated by animatronics. I remember being really interested in that early on and kind of just trying to figure out how to sculpt in clay and just doing fantasy characters and things like that.
Did you ever get into Tom Savini? Do you know who that is? He does. It's amazing. He did all like the Day of the Dead. He was the one who like invented like the blood squib and a lot of special effects, more practical, obviously.
Yeah, loved all that stuff.
Yeah, but that was amazing. Did your parents? I mean, do you have siblings?
Yeah, so I got a younger brother who was he into drawing and art and stuff? Not really. He was kind of more into being out on skateboards and things like that. Kind of, you know, he was out and about. But I was far more indoors, always making stuff, always drawing things, building things out of something that I could lay my hands on. And I would rather be in doing that than going out and doing stuff out of home.
No, I was the same exact way. Were your parents creative people?
No, not well. No. My mum was a cleaner, and before that, she kind of worked as a telephonist on like emergency phone calls. And my dad was a BT engineer, so quite technical, quite logical. And they divorced when I was about 10. No, I wouldn't say. My mum was kind of like, just do whatever makes you happy. That was her kind of thing. And I think my dad's very proud of me now, but at the time, maybe, especially when I was looking to take on art professionally, that I don't think that could compute for him. And so so that's been really interesting. And also me more recently, I think it's been interesting seeing. I've noticed that we've had my son more recently diagnosed with autism and my daughter with ADHD, and I went, oh, my wife's been diagnosed with ADHD. I'm like, oh God, I think I might be autistic. Oh wait, my dad's autistic. And so like some of those kind of those mental understandings where you kind of go, okay, now I understand why that was going on in my life at that time. That's definitely transpired for me more recently. And it's interesting because I always associate kind of that autistic spectrum with a lot of logic and tunnel vision and all that sort of thing.
It's almost like a superpower.
Yeah, completely. It's also a bit of pain in the ass. But I think I've always been quite equal left brain, right brain. I like logic and science, but I also love random creativity, and I like just mashing those two thought things together. Like I've always loved science and engineering, but then expressing that artistically has always been a real fascination of mine. If I try and put my finger on where I come from or where I'm going, it's always that kind of balance. And I think now, and I think about how that in my personal journey relates to Territory Studio and what it's become. I think I've surrounded myself with people like that are like interested in geeky logic stuff, but also cool, creative, exploratory, messy things. And I think it's the collision of those two. I don't know what they are, like ideals, like mindsets. I don't know, but I think that's it's definitely who I am, and it's the type of people that I feel like I surround myself with and enjoy talking to. Whether that's a film director or a game designer or a car designer or an architect. I always feel like each of those characters that we're working with, they're very much is creativity, but grounded in logic in some way. And I love that. I really love that.
And very intentional, the work.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I'd like to hope so. Like I think it becomes intentional because you do a lot of research. You like to read around a subject and understand who you're creating for, who you're designing for, what you're talking around. We definitely subscribe to research. I don't know if that was always part of our. I think it was always part of our beginning. So when I went to university, I went to university in Portsmouth. I'm jumping around a bit in personal story. Portsmouth was wonderful in terms of a course in the UK because they believed in the foundation of research for creativity and design and like informing yourself. And I think that frustrated me, that way of thinking in the early years of the course, because I just want to make stuff. I just want to be creative. But actually, and especially as I've got older, just work becomes richer and deeper and more meaningful the more that you imbue it with layers of meaning. And you can't just do that when you're working on the surface and the beauty of the craft. So as you're working into the meaning of the concept and you're understanding the layers of meaning that might build up through an artifact or something that you're creating, that comes from deeper ideas, like culturally imbued moments within. It can be a small thing. It can be a phone. It can be a design of a phone. When you're making that up and it's in a fantastical world, it's very easy and quick for it to become very surface and stylized. So how do you ground that in the overall logic of the world building of the overall film director, production designer, all the different people that you're kind of working into. The older I get, the more I have an appreciation for research and deeply learning about the matter that you're creating for, and a respect for that idea.
Absolutely. I mean, especially there's, as we get older and more refined as artists, I agree. I also feel that, our work means more. I don't know if that's just getting older or there's like a creative or just a being more mature. But yeah, and especially being territory, there's also, you guys have set, a standard. Um, but let's go back a little bit because this is really interesting because my parents also divorced. I'm definitely diagnosed and was in high school in, ADHD and like the whole thing. Um, when your parents divorced, did you find yourself as a way of just kind of survival as a kid, more introverted and like more focused in the art and the drawings and the creative?
Yeah, I think and I think Spielberg talks about this in a different way as well, doesn't he? You kind of the idea that escapism becomes interesting, like alternative possibilities become interesting. I think when your parents divorce, or maybe with my character type. I don't know, but I used to just love escaping in those worlds, and like I was quite booky as well. I liked reading books, and things like Terry Pratchett and Asimov and Neil Gaiman and all sorts of different books. And you'd read those books, and images would just come racing into your mind, which is kind of the process of when you read a script for a film as well. Actually, you kind of lose yourself in those words, and images are filling your head. And I just had a need to put that down on paper and explore it. Like that became fascinating to me, and it. I don't think I've ever really stopped doing that, to be honest with you. But the divorce was definitely formative for me. I think I realized that there was very little safety net under me, without getting into too much detail, and kind of, there was no financial stability. So I think maybe that's where the entrepreneurial bit has come from me.
Same thing with me, man. I like, and get into as much as you want, but yeah, there was no financial security in my upbringing. And I think we were born to do, I think our destiny before we got here was to do what we're doing. But you're right. I think that watching and being in a surrounding as a kid, the fear of like, oh my God, the lights, is the car going to be things that we shouldn't be concerned with? We need to. And I think that's heavily embedded into the way we are as adults and how we grew up.
Yeah. And I don't map to it like, oh, poor me. I'm like,
right.
I'm kind of grateful for that experience. It's easy for me to do that now. And when I speak to people that have been in a similar position to me that maybe haven't gone on to have the career that they would have liked, there's a guilt there that comes with me. It wasn't just, okay, that taught me a hard work ethic, and you can't rely on good luck. Like you have to kind of make it for yourself. So I kind of struggle with it within my identity sometimes, like that.
But David, why do you feel, are you saying that you feel guilty because you're successful?
Well, I don't think I ever tell myself I'm successful. But that's maybe just the British person in me.
Well, that's why you're beloved. Let me just tell you something. You're so humble, and I know this is uncomfortable, but you'll deal with it. You're so humble and so gifted. I mean, listen, dude, Territory Group is the biggest in the world as far as I'm concerned. And I am just so proud of you. We've never really met. We've never really talked. We've emailed a little bit throughout the years, in appreciation. But as a human being and fellow, studio owner, damn, I'm proud of you, man. And like everyone who's watching, hearing like where you've come from and like where you are. Oh my God, man. Wow. And I know that's, it's hard to like look back also because like we're always moving forward, but I just wanted to say that.
Well, that's why I like what you're talking about in terms of my formative years, because when you set up a studio, you go for a number of years and you're like, I just want to make great work. I just want to make great work. just want to employ great people, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of go forward and you get to a moment, you go, oh crap, have I done the vision and the mission, the branding thing? And like, you pause for a minute and go, right, I need to be a little bit more grown up now. And and you get plenty of business consultants come in and try and tell you what to do for a lot of money. One of the things being like, why the hell are you doing this? Like, what's driven you to this point? And when I track back and I think about that, and there's definitely been some statements that different people have said to me, but I remember telling somebody, and I won't say who it is, but somebody, when I said, oh, I'm going to go on to do computer animation at college or whatever. And at the time, probably in the 90s, they're like, you can't make money doing that. You know, they said some flippant remark to me, which was, well, first of all, it's creative. You're never going to make any money. And then secondly, it's totally niche. Like how on, you know, and that, you know, that still sits with me now. And I feel like creatives and people that are actually using technology to be creative, we're quite apologetic. And I think we do have a chip on our shoulder. I definitely feel like I have a chip on my shoulder in some ways and that I'm compensating for that. But now I'm at a point where I kind of go, right, this is what Territory is here for. It's to provide a safe place, a great place to meet great opportunities and projects with great people that deserve those projects and can do an amazing job with them, and just give them the conditions to do the work of their life. And so that's become my thing, which is I want this studio to outlive us. You know, I look at the creative industry sometimes, and especially in recent years, and I think, gosh, we still haven't figured it out. You know, as an industry, paying people a proper wage, giving them job security, giving them a career, giving them training, giving them a good health plan, making their parents proud to say, I'm working at Territory, I'm working in the creative space. And, you know, if I choose not to be a doctor or a lawyer, but I choose to do this thing, that's something we can all be proud of. And I feel like we're still not there with that. And for me, that's the interesting challenge now. Like I love the creative, you know, I love the work. And when people want to cheer me up, they just show me the work that we're doing here at the studio. That just cheers me up. That's just, if I'm getting grumpy about an Excel spreadsheet or something, that's what they do for me. But really my job, my thing now is, you know, literally just having a chat to an intern before coming in here, he's been here 2 weeks. I've not had a proper chance to chat to him. Those people, their eyes light up and they go, wait, what? I was doing this as a hobby. Like I get paid to do this thing and there's a career and it's real. And I mean this in the nicest possible way, but in the UK, you don't think that we really have a film industry here. So to be able to work on cool films and cool computer games and all that kind of stuff, it's surprising to people.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because on a previous podcast, there is, I found in the last 5 years, could be longer, but for sure in the last 5, there's something going on in London where there are so many shops that are, at least an observer on LinkedIn, let's just say, they're the only ones really that consistently and frequently, maybe it's my algorithm, that are hiring. And I'm not like looking to like get hired. It's not like that, but it's really interesting. Like what's going on in London?
Well, I mean, that's a very varied story. I mean, it depends on who you're talking about. Are you talking about visual effects? Are you talking about motion design?
I think in our industry, all of the above.
Okay. So I think it's a mixed picture. I would say that we're used to looking for the unusual opportunities here, and I think that's probably what the world needs right now. And I don't mean that as in the studios here can originate more interesting ideas. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we're used to fitting between the gaps. You know, we're not doing the big above the line commercial over here that a big US studio would do. We're picking up the unusual stuff. And well, particularly from our point of view, we started up in after the credit crunch, And I remember very early days, like we're going around knocking on doors, trying to get what you would typically get as a, if you're up against the Mill Plus or some other big studio that was here in the UK, they were kind of, all the brands and all the clients were kind of like, no, we've got our people, thanks very much. We're not spending that much money at the moment. We'll just stick with who we know. And so we built this kind of strategy on just taking on all the new, unusual stuff that people weren't working on.
Like what?
Like screen graphics. Like, who on earth does computer interfaces on a film set? Like, that's niche. That's really really niche. And it's kind of become a bigger thing now because we all have mini screens in our pockets. We're all living our lives through screens, and therefore directors and film producers need to echo back to the world what they're seeing in real life. So they need to put screens in films more often. So we rode that wave in terms of augmented reality and holograms and screens, because technology became a storytelling element for the world building, and it had a commentary on what society was about. And so our relevance in movies, starting in 2010 and beyond with Prometheus, it kind of tracked in a really interesting direction. So that was one niche for us. Then another niche was bringing motion design and design to computer games. That kind of wasn't a particular thing 15 years ago, and now it very much is, and we feel like we can sit in that space. Or the future of in-car automotive design in terms of the central cluster and navigation system. So we've picked off these different niches that have thought behind the strategy and the relevance to the world. I mean, ironically, a lot of our work is future gazing, and we have to do that for ourselves, which is, okay, we're here. We believe, we have the hypothesis that the world's going here. How do we get ahead of that so that the world meets us at the right moment?
But also, David, how do you gain the trust of clients to trust you with that?
Well, you have to tell them when things will not work. I mean, I remember Ridley on Prometheus saying, well, so we need a bunch of holograms here, right? No, that's going to be in post, Ridley. That's not going to be for real. He's like, no, we can do it. Like, okay, I'm going to show you. Not going to be obstructive. I'll show you how it can work. And he's a bugger because he actually figured out quite a clever way of doing it on some glass panel. We projected onto glass panels, but some of the stuff that he wanted to do ended up being holographic visual effects work. But just telling people, you get trust by just being honest with people and telling them that will definitely work. That might work, but can you give us a moment because we don't quite know how to do it just yet. And that thing definitely won't work. And I think that honesty where they can see, oh God, they're really willing to turn this work away means, I mean, there's a client that we've worked with all of this year who's been phenomenal to work with. The previous year, they were talking to us and wanting to work with us. And I just kept turning them away because we just didn't have the time to do the quality of work that we would have been happy with. And I said, I'm so sorry. I don't want to keep saying no to you. And I hope you do come back when you've got the right conditions for us to work with you. And I would understand if you never come back. And I think they really appreciated that. There was just this level of understanding that you come to us for a certain standard. If you want us to deliver that standard, we have to do it under the conditions. And we're not prima donnas about this. We know that we can work incredibly quick and at high standard because on films you do. I think people think you have years and years.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to. You absolutely have to. So we always have quite a hard yardstick. We always have quite a hard measure of ourselves. I mean, I know you were chatting to Erin more recently, and Erin's been just doing beautiful work with James Gunn now for years and years, and just building that trust. And I think Erin's, not to compare myself to Erin, maybe a little bit, she also cares. And I think when you're a creative and a business owner, that belief and passion are kind of the most important things. They're kind of the driver and the magic behind all of it. Because the only reason really we can deliver at the level that we do is because we believe that we can. Like, there's other studios that could be doing this work and maybe at some points better than us. But we kind of believe that we can make work this iconic that stands the test of time. that people look back on and go, wow, I was a part of Territory when they were doing those things. And we didn't start there. You know, we weren't from day one doing cool stuff at the highest level. You kind of build to that point, but you always just believe that you can be better, do better, and you push yourself to do that. And then I think, especially with film directors, as soon as you start to care more than they do, they're like, whoa, well, you don't need me. I'll just let you. I mean, Denis Villeneuve's like that. He basically winds everybody up to love it as much as he does. And then he sits back and just watches all the amazing stuff happening. And I would say Ridley Scott is the same. They just kind of energize teams around them. And then once you've got your team on side and they're like sweating the details more than the director does and caring about every little storytelling moment, that's where that's when trust kicks in. So I think as long as you're taking on projects that are right for you, that you care about, that you're invested in, as much as the people that you're working with are, the trust just comes.
Before Territory, you were working at studios, Why Not Associates, Spar, Fold 7, right?
Yep.
In London.
Yep.
What was the defining moment for you where you're like, I gotta open a shop?
So I met my business partner Nick when I was at Fold 7, and we were working on music commercials, we were working on TV commercials, where lots of really interesting brands and all that sort of thing. And it was a great job. And then I went freelance. And honestly, freelance was the moment for me to go, right, I want to work at all the cool places. I want to work at all the different places that I wanted to work at in the UK. And I kind of, tick them off on a list. Spav were doing amazing cutscenes for Call of Duty at the time. Why Not Associates were just like this heavyweight design studio. They're kind of a UK version of a Paul Rand, or it's just that kind of like legacy and just incredible projects. So I got to work at all these different studios in different ways, and I loved elements of each one, but they just weren't bringing it. There wasn't one that brought all of those great things all together in one place. I thought, that's a shame, And I would look on at the studios in the US with envy a little bit and kind of look at the scale of the projects that were going on there and some of the things that were happening.
Who did you envy back then?
Oh, I used to love, is it Stardust, Motion Theory, MK12, PSYOP, I know they're still going. Motion Theory, there was...
Did you ever consider moving to LA?
No. I did. It just felt so far away at the time. I mean, if you saw where I grew up, it was a million miles away from any kind of belief that could happen. Now, obviously, since setting up Territory, and then we've got an LA office with Cantina, and I don't go out there as much as I would like, but I go out there quite often, and I love it. I love LA. But I think there's something interesting about this kind of melding of cultures. Like, I love that, we were founded in the UK, but always working with American clients. And I love that, Cantina have lots of multicultural reference points. And Marty, who's originally from Barcelona, who set up our San Francisco office, working with Linnell over there. And there's just these wonderful little pockets of meeting of different cultures, which is kind of in the same way interesting with the kind of the left brain meeting the right brain. It feels in sync with our ethos. But no, I haven't lived out in LA. But no, all of those studios, I say Brand New School, there's so many at that time, at that moment, that were really inspirational. Anyway, so there was it just felt like there was real energy, and you'd always check in on Motionographer and kind of see the cool stuff that's coming up. And it just felt like time. It just felt like there was a moment for us to do it, and then the credit crunch kicked in, put on probably about a year of pause for us in starting. And then one day got this opportunity to pitch on the Medal of Honor opening cinematic with Electronic Arts in LA. And we worked on that remotely, and it went really well. amazing team to work with. They were so great.
How did that happen? Since when you first started Territory, is it true you were like in an attic space somewhere?
Yeah,
Is that true?
not. Well, no. Working on Medal of Honor, I was working in my spare bedroom in Essex in the UK, and it's a tiny little room, not much bigger than this,
right?
With a Mac and kind of figuring that out with a group of kind of trusted people around me, which was that was amazing. Then we moved into our first office, which was actually a friend's design studio, which was kind of like a muse space in London. So their ground floor was like this gallery space. Next floor up was a company called All City, who do beautiful film design too. And they said, "Oh, we've got this attic space. You could squeeze in about 7 people. You couldn't really squeeze in about 4 people, but we managed to squeeze in 7. And we were in there for our first year. Really good memories, but we quickly, we've got pictures of like one of the guys knew how to cut hair, so we'd go around like cutting the hair of, and like when it would get really cold outside, we didn't have a buzzer and we were on the 3rd floor, so we'd just throw the keys out of the window for the people to catch, and like all those kind of cool stuff, which you just kind of do when you're like bootstrap. We've bootstrapped the whole way. There's no investment. It's just like, needs must, figure it out, move on to the next thing. Although fortunately now we're at a scale where it doesn't need quite as much bootstrapping as we used to do. But yeah, so like really fond memories of early setup and being quite small. And now I kind of look at it and I look around. There's been different moments. And the imposter syndrome is a real thing, definitely. I wouldn't say it's imposter syndrome. It's just like this absolute shock and surprise looking around of, oh, wait, I'm kind of responsible for this. And is it every once in a while, your heart beats and you're like, I really better be a grown up.
Absolutely. How did you deal with like, and studio owners are watching this and new people coming into, our industry. When you were first starting out, and you've said in other interviews that, Prometheus, that film maybe was like the first that really kind of just elevated the studio. How did you get that project?
So I'd very fortunately freelanced. My first ever film that I freelanced on within the art department was Casino Royale. I'd been working on music videos, and when iTunes came out, music video budget started to plummet. So I thought, okay, need to maybe move things on a little bit and protect my future career. And there was this odd little job article at the back of a magazine, and it looked like it was working for quite a corporate company. What happened is they'd managed to blag the contract to supply all the screens and the computers for the new Casino Royale film in terms of the on-set stuff. So they knew how to do the hardware, but they just didn't have a full team when it came to designing the graphics. There were a few people already, but they needed another motion designer. So I kind of threw myself in at the deep end and figured it out on the job. And then after working on Casino Royale, that team very kindly took me on to The Dark Knight, and worked on that movie as part of the team. And then, and kind of one thing led to another. What question was I answering?
The Prometheus, like as a early shop, and like the spirit of like, how do I acquire these big clients? And then you get a crazy huge project.
So George Simons, who was the graphic designer on Prometheus, we'd finished working on Medal of Honor. We'd just done some cutscenes for Killzone 3. And I got this phone call out of the blue from this guy, lovely guy called George Simons, who was the graphic designer on Prometheus. And he said, "Your name's been recommended to me. I understand that you worked on Dark Knight film." It's like, on the Batmobile. I was like, "Yes, absolutely, that's correct." And he said, "If you can sign an NDA, let me tell you about the project." And that turned out to be Prometheus. And so I think he thought he was hiring a freelancer. I said, "Actually, I'm building out a studio. It's called Territory Studio. is that okay? And he was like, we've got tons of graphics. That's okay. We need, we need more of a team.
Right.
So there was a freelance team with people like, so amazing chap called Sean Yu that we worked with, and a number of others. And then I was kind of going on to set and then briefing back to the team at Territory. And that was a really wonderful project. And working with, so when I first worked with a chap called Paul Inglis, who we've gone on to work with on Mission Impossible and Blade Runner and lots of other projects I can't talk about at the moment. But those early relationships have just tracked on for us from that point. But yeah, that was the first break as Territory Studio into films.
And so in those early days, like, paint the picture for us where, like, it was you and you said one other partner. Like, how did you delegate who did what? How did you know or have the maturity of knowing, who's better at what and then doing it,
So I think I'd always had an instinct with Nick that, we've talked about this more recently, that we're quite yin and yang in terms of I'm very much creative and client relationship. Also, he's very good on client relationship, actually, but he also is very interested in the things that are less appealing to me, like finance and lawyers and corporate stuff. And so we just had this natural, you go away and focus on that. So there was no overlap, no treading on toes. And I've seen it a lot of times when people have founded studios and they've all been creative founders or co-founders, and I look at that and think, who's doing all the business?
Correct. Exactly. Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's really hard because everyone then has to end up sacrificing.
Correct.
I managed to just kind of, within that, just kind of tunnel vision and plow on. And then I got to a moment where I realized, okay, I can't be the solo creative director at Territory because I become a bottleneck. We kind of got to a scale of about 20, 25 people. We were working on Avengers Age of Ultron, and we'd also just won Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And in trying to creatively direct both of those projects, we it wasn't working. And we ended up coming off of Star Wars: Force Awakens and that going to another studio. And at that point, the realization for me was I'm getting in my own way. I'm a bottleneck to our overall ambition, which is to be on as many of those cool projects as possible. Like, I don't want to be saying goodbye to Star Wars when, but also I need to be doing a good job of Avengers Age of Ultron. So that was a real realization for me. And that was when two things happened. Marty, at the time, who was an art director, we promoted him to creative director, and he went over to San Francisco to set up the San Francisco office. So at that moment that happened. So I was like, oh my God, Marty's going. He's, who's also quite a creative commercial leader in his own right.
And
so
was that to support Star Wars because of ILM and it was right there?
No. So we were getting pulled by some strategic workshops we were doing with Nike, and they really, really wanted us to set up over on the West Coast. So we thought, what a wonderful opportunity to set up our first other office. And Marty had family there at the time. He had this spark of wanting to drive just beyond creative and the commercial side. So we saw that, and that was working really well. And then at the same time, Andrew Popplestone came in, who's now our ECD here. And both of them just make me go, their creative director level and their chops for conversation with the client and just the whole package just made me go, well, I don't need to, they're going to do this better than I can. And so as I started to step away from the day-to-day creative oversight, those two kind of stepped into the two roles in the two separate offices. And that was a real moment of, I think, of scale. And then we could then focus, Nick could focus on more on the business stuff. So for me, that's kind of team growth, industry, client growth, and all those sorts of things. Nick looking at kind of operational aspects, financial aspects. And also now suddenly we've got two offices. We've got probably at that point a team of about between 30 and 50 in London and a fledgling studio in San Francisco, and just figuring out how to keep those two things going really solidly. Yeah.
And what an amazing move too, because let me tell you something. As you probably know, there's so many studio founders, owners, that it's so difficult for them to relinquish creative control. And because there's a moment where, most studio owners are creative themselves. They've started freelancing. They've opened a shop, and their shop is their taste. It's really kind of that person. And then as you build and bringing on more people, it almost feels, at least in the early days, less personal, because now, even though like you have creative oversight, it's not you necessarily always hitting the buttons. It's hiring other people, and you have to do that. And so amazing, such an example that, you had your eye on the prize, where it's like, I'm trying to build something bigger. This isn't about me anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But, and I think you can do that with confidence once you hire well. So, there's been times when I've dropped down into this business because maybe something is not sitting quite right. Maybe the right person's not in the right role, or we don't have the right processes around them, or I've just not understood that actually we're now at this maturity of business, and what was working for us at, say, 50 people is not going to work for us at, say, 100 people. Or what was working with us for 2 sites is now not going to work for us over 5 sites. So I think, and that's really cruel, and it's really unfair. I would say that the normally the glass ceiling for any studio or company, and it's hard to hear this, is probably the principal's own personal growth and change of mindset. Because once you go through that change of mindset, you can help change that cultural or operational shift that needs to happen in your own studio. Or it could even be like your go-to-market strategy or whatever it is. But typically, whatever worked for you at a certain scale is going to be the thing that gets in the way for you to realize the next scale. And that's quite cruel, but it so like invest in therapy would be what I'd advise to most founders of studios. Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, and you brought up Cantina Creative. So in July 2022, you acquired Cantina Creative as your first external acquisition, right? And congratulations. I mean, there's very little studios, if any, that I hear have or are doing that. So on a human being level, dude, that's fucking awesome, and congratulations. And like, again, so proud of you. And I know it's like bizarre to hear that from like practically a stranger, but it's wild. Like, your work throughout the decades, people can recognize. So I hope you accept that with the same authenticity that I'm delivering it. But so you acquire Cantina, what's been the biggest obstacle in merging the cultures and the talent? Like, get into that.
So I think they would argue, well, we haven't totally. I mean, it's taken a lot longer than we had assumed. There was a lot of learning in that. The wonderful thing about the 2 founders, Sean and Steve, 2 things. They tell us, they just tell us, like, this is not working, that's not working. Can we try this? Can we try that? The other thing, the thing that I've got to say about those guys is they care as much as we do about the quality of the work. They're not business owners. Like they care as much as their entire team. And I remember announcing it both in San Francisco and in London at the time that we were going through this deal. And I think everyone was like, wow, just wow, because there's such mutual respect both sides for the portfolio and the work, a mutual respect in both directions.
Did you know those guys before? Like tell me like the year or years leading up to that,
I think the entire conversation and deal took about a year to 18 months. After the pandemic, we were in a fortunate position. We were still doing well. We had reserves. We hadn't moved offices, and so at the time, and post pandemic, you look at it afterwards and go, maybe you should have been a little bit more restrained with actors and writers strikes coming up and all the rest of it. But hindsight. But
oh, you mean like the spending money and stuff? The finances? Yeah. Right.
But actually, it's the best. It was one of the best things we've ever done because Sean and Steve are very gracious and they share a lot of information and intel. So that the meeting of minds between the founders, on both sides of the business, there's a lot of mutual respect, and they teach us stuff, we teach them stuff, and that kind of shared learning that builds up a lot of cohesion. The stuff that we haven't properly figured out yet and we're still working on is the global operational things. So things like you're all using Microsoft Teams and you're all using Slack. Like when just boring, some of the boring stuff like that. And then just that cohesion. Like they had their 15th birthday this month. And I so badly wanted to be there, couldn't be there for personal reasons. So just sending some of the London team, some of the San Francisco team to kind of go and be a part of that. And it's important. That stuff's important. And I think the distance is the hardest bit, in all honesty. That kind of, in an ideal world, I think at one day we'll have global offices across more time zones that will help with that join up. Maybe if you had New York, would it split the difference between LA, San Francisco, and London? Would that help be like a nice conduit? But there's lots of things. And even though we speak the same language and we work in the same industries and all the rest of it, it takes real time and effort. And we're realizing that you can't just have operational roles in each local office. So San Francisco, LA, Vancouver, London, Barcelona. You also then have to have some global roles that create that join up. And so there becomes some quite functional financial things around that, which is, are all the offices together combined making enough money that you can substantiate that additional overhead in terms of, a CFO, global head of people, a global head of operate, all that stuff that feels quite grown up, suddenly becomes tangibly tied to the numbers of the company. And what you don't want to do is then overburden and, it will get too costly and so that it doesn't continue to be about the creative work and the ambition. So that's a fine line to tread. We're still figuring that one out. But what I love is everyone's working really hard at it.
So explain a little bit, do you guys share resources? Are you guys how is that all working? Because they have their own brand and identity and clients and all that.
Yeah. And that's really important. So one of the things I've been adamant about is we created Territory Group to give it the umbrella. However, it's really important that Cantina still maintains their own website, their own identity, their own brand, because it's got so much value baked into it, as has Territory Studios. And people will go to different studios for different reasons, or they might just want it to all be joined up. And so people coming to us have that optionality. It's, well, I love what Cantina does, but I need to access the UK rebate and we're doing work over here. Can we work with the London team, or, however that conversation unfolds. So currently the things that are shared, one of the big ones is, I would say, executive intelligence, like the things that we're learning on the ground in San Francisco, in London, in Vancouver, in LA, that's shared, and we regularly come together on that stuff. We're getting better at marketing and business development in terms of a joined up resource. That's a project that's taken a lot longer than we thought, but actually it's in a really nice rhythm and cadence now, and we're regularly having global meetings for that. Finance is just joined up globally. That's just a centralized thing. And then on our agenda at some point is more of the IT operational, people side is getting there actually. Our people team is like really joined up and global. So different parts of what you would want to be joined up and integrated, including culture, is at like different stages of maturity. And I suspect some of them have still got a year, and maybe one or two of them have still got 2 years to kind of go, which is surprising when you say we're already 3 years into it. But it's so much learning doing that for the first time.
Does it feel good, David, brother? Does it feel good after all of what you're describing? And I feel like you're just getting started, right? For your dad, who in the very beginning, like many of us creatives, it's not a safe career. It's scary. It's fill in the blank. It's a lot of things, right? And you said that you think your dad is proud. Don't you think he's proud as hell? Like, are you just like, oh my God, this is amazing?
So I've got two dads. I've got a stepdad, and I've got my biological dad.
Yep.
My biological dad, I don't have much of a conversation with, and I think he's more autistic. I don't think he even realizes he's autistic. So we don't have much of a relationship, and he's the one that really struggles with me doing this and having a creative profession. And as I started to realize how autistic, and hopefully he doesn't see this, I don't think he's fully understood it. I don't think he's fully understood what I've gone into. Now, I really hurt from that in my younger years, but actually now I love him and I understand it. And, we distantly communicate through text messages and stuff like that, but that's about as far as the relationship goes. My stepdad, who had a really close relationship with, from 16 onwards, came into my life at 16. He passed away last year, hence the kind of past tense.
So sorry.
And it's, he did understand and he took a lot of interest, but he wasn't a creative person, but I did connect with him like a lot closely. I think one of the things that we shared bizarrely was gardening. So I'm on a computer all day, if it's emails, whatever it is, whatever I'm doing, whether it's graphics or everything else, it's always on a computer. And I think my kind of still historical connection with him is he was a gardener and not, as a profession. And I love digging up a garden and just seeing something physical like transform. And it's very different to what I do at work, and it's outside and it's fresh air and it's in with nature, and I just love that. And so I don't necessarily connect with him I didn't as much. He was proud, and he definitely let me know he was proud of me, but I don't think I connected with him as much on that side of things as I did on the gardening side, because I could learn so much from him. We really connected and bonded on that side of things. But no, bizarrely, I think a lot of my family, my brother's definitely proud of me. He does roofing, so completely, very, very, very different profession, but he's overjoyed for me because he knows how much this means to me.
Do you know how beautiful that is, man? That he's, because in some families, that brother of what's his name? Your brother?
Peter.
A guy like Peter could be bitter and jealous and all these things, and he loves you and he's proud of you. And you know how rare and like how great that is? It's awesome.
No, I mean, I know. And I'm seeing him this weekend, and he's been through huge life struggles himself. So I look up to him as well. I think it goes both ways completely.
Yeah. David, you've worked on such high profile projects and directors. Do you ever get intimidated on a project or a client?
I think I used to. I definitely used to. I've had, you can get some quite prickly characters that you come across in the industry. And how do I put this? Somebody quite famous, who I won't name, just lost their shit at me, just completely in front of a lot of people, lost their shit at me. And I completely didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on, and it was on a phone call with the rest of my team listening in, and they were really going at me. And it's quite a famous voice. If you heard a sample of their voice, you'd immediately know who it was.
Let's cut to a clip. I'm just kidding. Yeah,
definitely not cut to a clip. This is
I'm teasing.
This is lawyer lad, but he was really going at me, and I just didn't understand it. I just totally didn't understand it. Anyway, 5 minutes later, the producer calls me out and goes, "I'm so sorry. He thought you were the other British person that we're working with, and he just heard the voice and just pour into you." I was like,
"Oh my."
And
that's crazy, dude.
And I just remember laughing my head off. And you suddenly realize that all of these people are just going through crap. They're carrying a $150 million film on their shoulders. Like, they're working insane hours, and they're very human. But they've just sometimes maybe they've bitten off more than they can chew. So no, I mean, some of the most lovely people that I've met are incredibly famous. And there are. It's very rare for me to meet. I'll name some of the ones that I absolutely adore. Ridley is a very, very special person. Denis. I've not personally worked with Spielberg, but the team here have worked with Spielberg, and it's always been lovely to work with. James Gunn, who I know Erin works a lot with, just wonderful sense of humor. They're all just comfortable in their own skin, and they understand the art form, and they have a confidence with it. So they don't have a need to make you feel intimidated. They don't intentionally do that. They are absolutely focused on the work, and that is maybe where the intimidation comes from, because you have seen them before and they are familiar. But as soon as you start talking about the work and the ideas, it's just a level playing field, and there's no bravado, there's no kind of hierarchy there. It's like, how do we get to the best idea? How do we make this look amazing? How do we help it tell a story? Like, help me connect with the audience here, and it's kind of, you're all in it together. Yes, when I was younger and I was doing this, insanely intimidated. But now I'm just like, roll the sleeves up. Like, can we get, like, why on earth are you, my first question is, why on earth are you spending 3 years of your life making this movie? Like, what is your, what's your personal connection to this? Right. And when they start talking about that, and they always have a reason. They always have a reason as to why they, Chris McQuarrie with Mission Impossible, there's always a deeper thought there. And once that comes out and the team understands it, they're like, oh, right. Well, this is kind of important stuff. We need to help them as best as we can. And you kind of move past the intimidation, and you just become insanely collaborative. And all of the directors that I've mentioned are just amazing at getting the best from the teams around them. Like, I've got no bad words to say about them, really.
As the founder of such a big group, David, you guys have your teeth in entertainment and films. And earlier, you had mentioned, with the automotive, which is a very innovative pivot, right, for business. At the moment, what is Territory Group like? Just even you personally, forget about the group, just you. What types of work or categories of work are you curious and currently trying to go after that you aren't?
Oh, that we're not going after. Oh, wow. Because I was going to say, so space is a really big thing at the moment. We like working with space agencies, and
go talk about that. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I just love, the San Francisco team have just been working with Vast on like videos for their space station that hasn't been made yet. And it goes back to those NASA books that I was talking about, with the future of space exploration. So the kid in me gets reignited when I see that we're doing work like that.
Absolutely.
Like big challenges. Like we're really good at like exciting people about the art of the possible. You know, we can visualize super exciting visions of the future or kind of what if scenarios, and that kind of extends across the board. You know, so we've got so busy because of AI. You know, because everyone needs to imagine what it could be, and not just the stuff that everyone's using it for now, but like all of the untapped potential. So there's all of those different things. I mean, I'd like to be working more with architects. We always work so well with other creative leaders. So if I think about, you know, film directors and music producers and game designers and car designers, they're all wonderful aspirations. They have a language and a way of talking to us around projects that elevates what we can do. So anyone which recently just had an amazing conversation with Nitin Sawhney, who's an incredible music producer, and just like where those conversations kind of went and flowed to. And we're just working with Valentino, who's an incredible ballet choreographer for the Royal Opera House. And so I love working with interesting people, interesting characters that aspire beyond what is currently there. I think that's it. Like to continue to work on any special project. I'd like to be working on more operatics, and I'd like to be working on more space things and working with more architects. So we've been working with Thomas Heatherwick's studio a lot recently, and just like incredible architectural organic forms. And I think that's the thing about, maybe you can going back to your point about London. I think we're tracing and we're tracking with new markets, new domains. We're doing a lot of work in Asia. We're doing a lot of work in the Middle East. Europe's getting exciting again. Like European design and creative projects and briefs that are coming through that we're working on at the moment are super interesting. So sometimes it's projects, sometimes it's people. You know, if you find the right collaborator, but on the face of it, the brief is quite normal, you can always elevate it. There's always an opportunity to take it beyond, because they're willing to be not even a little bit brave, but just interested, just interested to see what it could be. Yeah.
Do you guys have like at this point, like a new business group or personnel, or do people just call?
Both. We definitely get inbound inquiries, and they're often quite interesting ones. We've had some really weird. We designed the external skeleton of a robotic arm for amputees, and I just love that somebody trusted us with that.
I know, like, how does that work? Just because of obviously like the work in that kind of it's almost sci-fi-ish, but like you've probably shown some kind of examples in films. You know, like that's wild, right?
Yeah, I think the film thing opens more doors than we should have license to have access to. I remember when we worked on Ex Machina, like we were getting all of these digital inquiries, and I was thinking we don't actually legitimately have a team to answer some of these inquiries. So we're not going to take them on, but they were just incredible opportunities. And so over time, we built out a team to realize more of those opportunities. But yes, definitely inbound marketing, PR, and things like that are very important. And we have a great team in a number of our offices. We have a new business team that kind of focus on various different things: the strategy, the kind of the overall proposition, and then kind of reaching people in the right way. All of those things really. It's all important in one way or another. So Instagram and LinkedIn and all of that stuff becomes very relevant.
For digital artists and producers, and certainly like in our world of like entertainment and film, what is your thought on, or your opinion, your insight on AI and all of these studios, and specifically, I guess, freelance artists who are concerned that their jobs are in jeopardy?
We're talking about AI now, aren't we?
Yeah. Is that bad?
No. I mean, I think everyone's jobs are in jeopardy because there is a shrink in the market. And I think that AI is a useful scapegoat. But in reality, less films and TV shows are being made at the moment. Games is going through a contraction. And that is not because AI is here. It's because there is a contraction. So I think it doesn't help with a bunch of influencers saying, hey, guess what? This thing's going to take everyone's jobs. That's not useful, but it's also not the reality. We're going through a global recession. Let's just not mince our words. The last 2 to 3 years, whether our governments want to admit to that or not, it has already happened. We've been through it, and it's, and there's been a couple of wars and interest rates going up and all the rest of it. There's been a shrinking in the market for creative services, for advertising, for media and films, and in computer games. And that contraction in the market has definitely created a contraction in our industry, and some really brilliant studios and shops have gone under. And that's really sad. But I don't lay that at the feet of AI. It's laid at the feet of consumer habits and people spending less money. It's not because AI is editing your emails or churning out a load of gumph to go on a, cosmetics, social media banner ad, or, whatever it is, unless you were doing that stuff. So yeah, I think we just need to be real with what's going on, more generally in the world, and be realistic with that. And it's not that your skill sets are not viable anymore. We still are hiring new compositors and CG artists and designers and we do have some people using AI, but they're not doing what those other people are doing. They're doing new things. So there's growth there for people if they want to augment what they're doing with AI workflows. But it's not the reason that we're seeing a contraction in the jobs market. We're just seeing a contraction in the jobs market because the economy is contracted. Or at least that's my opinion from what I'm seeing in the UK, the US, and Europe. And there are still growth markets. It's not China, but other areas of Asia are growing, and other areas of the Middle East are growing. But I would say most economies generally have stagnated more recently, and it is to do post-pandemic. Governments had to increase inflation to deal with the debt burden. There's a debt burden in most countries to pay for the pandemic and a bunch of other things. And that's just boring economics, I'm afraid.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because, that's still on the mind of a lot of people. A lot of chatter in the US and, throughout our, motion design community. So that's great to hear. And I agree. I don't think that there's, a threat of our jobs. With that, it's just it's not one-to-one. With our talent and skills. Okay, we're gonna wrap with a speed round.
Welcome to the speed round with David Sheldon Hicks.
David, what is your most rewatched movie?
The one that I really watched the most, Children of Men.
What's your favorite swear word?
All of them. Shit.
When you have your phone, what is your most used app?
It's either LinkedIn or WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm. All-time favorite food? Probably like a junk food, just probably something sloppy and just,
It's a really mean question.
It is, I know.
I don't know. Some sort of shellfish, I think.
Yeah, right. And it's funny, speaking of that, what would be, or who would be, your dream dinner guest? Living or alive, I would say.
I'd love to chat to Stephen Fry. I think he'd be super interesting. I think he could hold a conversation for quite a long time.
Right. You would not get bored.
No.
We touched on this a little bit, but David, after all of this is said and done, what would you like your legacy to be?
well, my kids, and I guess my other big kid, which is the studio. I'd like this to far outlive me. I'd like to look back down on this world and know that it's providing jobs after me, and careers that make people happy. That would be amazing.
That's incredible. No, I love that. David, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Super grateful. This has been such a joy, and you've shared so much amazing stuff. And I hope we can, continue this offline. We're both busy, but just to, keep the relationship going. You're just an amazing influence in our industry, and I know that this episode will be wildly impactful for a lot of people watching it at all levels and industries.
Thank you, Bryan. You almost made me cry, so I can honestly say that is the first in the podcast. A real pleasure.
Conversations with Bryan Grant.
Hi friends, Bryan thought no better way to ask you to please subscribe to this channel than this very real video and not a dumb AI one, so hit that button, okay?